Okay.
What's up, brother?
I'm all good. I'm very, very excited. I'm not even sure how to even start. This is launching the first Men Up podcast, and
That's the name. Man Up.
Yeah, Men Up.
I dig it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you feel about it?
I feel like it's taking a common phrase and maybe expanding upon it and twisting it in a positive way.
Boom. That's
Right?
the idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's introduce ourselves. I'm Yehuda Nahari, and we are here with Lee John, and we are here in Men Up podcast, which this is the first time, and I'm very, very excited. And the intention of this conversation, meeting, movement, however you want to call it, is to just bring a platform for men to be vulnerable and express himself. And because I think, I'm tired with everything that goes around us and in the world. And I see that from my perspective, I believe that it's unresolved trauma and pain in people, man, nations, equal wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like thinking that I really want to create a platform, a trend, or a movement that will encourage men to just speak up and be vulnerable and express himself. And if there is some boxes unopened, boxes that we should better to open them in order not to explode out there.
I agree, bro. I agree.
And we know each other through our partners, and I always look at you like the first time that I met you, you would look like, oh, he probably on top of his game. And that's the way, like, he's a fucking stable man, loyal for his partner for like more than 8 years now.
16.
Wow.
16 years, bro. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, that sounds so scary to me. But I'm realizing that we all struggle with the same thing. And you have some struggles as well.
Indeed, I do.
And would you like to share a little bit about your struggles nowadays? And maybe what's your story?
Wow, my story. Starting from where? The beginning?
Wherever you want to begin.
Well, I guess let's start from now.
Okay, good.
Right. Basically, I've been going through some really heavy stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I kind of had what I maybe consider to be an emotional mental breakdown maybe 2 weeks ago, something like that, where I think just mounting depression, anxiety, unhappiness with my life and things that have been persisting for a really long time kind of all came to a head. And for the first time, I mean, maybe not the very first time, but I think for the first time in my life, I went all the way down to the bottom. Right. And that was really, really rough and just terrible and painful for, I don't know, 3-4 days. And then slowly after that, it kind of started to get better. Of course, through a lot of conversation with Naya, my fiance, we were able to get back on the same page with each other and just get back in harmony. And I'm sure, as you know, as a man who's with a woman, when you are not in harmony with your woman, everything else sucks.
Yeah.
Right? Like nothing is tenable. And it wasn't problems necessarily with her that precipitated the breakdown. But what ended up happening for me is because of where I'm at in my life, my entire life, right? Including our relationship. Of course, me completely just losing it really affected her, and it brought up all the deep-seated stuff that we've dealt with in a way here and there, but have swept under the rug for years and things that have persisted. And so, you start dredging up that mud, man. And like, it was a lot of work to get through that, but I feel much better now. Not that I'm like all fixed, you know, but it's when you go through something really, to be honest, like a kind of a traumatic event where you just get that low and lose your temper and have just crying and yelling, and coming back from that takes a little bit of time. So that's kind of where I'm at now today.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because it feels like everyone go through this right now, and especially men. It feels like something is pushing us to evolve, or like to let go of some old patterns, behaviors. And I can relate to what you're saying, because I went through a breakdown myself, emotionally, mentally, I can say even physically almost, that, I've caught myself maybe a week ago, just like sitting in the bathroom with a knife, asking myself, do you really want to kill yourself right now? And I was like, just to make this action and go to the kitchen and bring the knife and sit in the bathroom, like it of course it came after a whole day of a swirl, of like a dark swirl that I was just like sucked me down. But to the point that I really need to sit with myself and ask this question: do you really want to kill yourself, and why, and what for, and like and then I was asking, like, what part of you want to kill? Like, what parts of you is not, like, I was asking myself, what part of myself I want to kill, what part of myself it's not working for me, or like holding me back from being who I am. And this moment, it's a celebration moment for me, because I wanted to do this for so long. And English is not my mother tongue, and I'm like, I was caught up with, oh, I'm gonna sound like stupid, and with my accent and all of this and that, and like everything that I could just like, that can hold me back from doing what I need and want to do, whatever will happen with it, And so I can definitely feel, but I wanted to ask you, like, what's for you? What was once you were digging, what came up? Like, what you realizing, everything that you kind of push under the carpet, as you said?
Good question, man. For me, I mean, on an individual basis, right? I've been in a relationship for 16 years. Okay. And I got into that relationship because I produced Naya's first EP. She's a singer-songwriter, an artist, and I'm a multi-instrumentalist, artist, songwriter, producer myself. And at that time, I was like 22. I had been single for a couple years, and I was just starting to really kind of unfold at that point into my own artist. And I went to produce Naya's record. And from that point on, I fell so deeply in love with her music that I dedicated myself to being a supporter of hers for, it was years, right? And in doing so, I did not attend to my own path in many ways, right? As an artist, as an individual, I never took that time to be like a young man out just doing my thing, developing who I am, XYZ. And so that's kind of a fundamental, I think, problem that I've had for a really long time, and has created a lot of unhappiness in my relationship with Naya, But because we love each other so deeply, and at times because we were professionally entangled with one another, right? Being in a band, we had this really big vision for it, working, all the money, everything is so tied up. I felt very locked in, and maybe stayed in the relationship during times that I probably should have been by myself, right? So anyway, fast forward years later, where I've been at is living out in the middle of the desert, right? We ended up getting this place, this ranch out in the desert, and it's been about 2 years, and I've been increasingly felt more isolated being that far out there. And like my whole life is like online, and whether it's my business or my social interactions, it's all through social media. And so just a combination of the mounting unhappiness with who it is that I am at this point, what I haven't done for myself and what I haven't attended to when it comes to the expression of who it is that I am and building a real career. I've been doing music professionally for 25 years, and I've had great ups and downs, but nothing has really turned into a stable career. There hasn't been that thing that snowballs that then becomes what I do as an identity as an artist. It's kind of been in some ways all over the place. And so that's been a big pressure. financial pressures, lack of success in that area, being unhappy with certain aspects of the relationship, and all that kind of was just mounting, and it really came to a head. And honestly, a big part of, I think, why it is that it became I was unable to really ignore it and keep stuffing it down is because about 2 months ago, I stopped habitually drinking alcohol and smoking weed.
Yeah.
Right. For the first time in my life.
That's a great mask to mask with the world. Yeah.
Yes.
I can feel relate to that. Yes.
Right. So I think that's kind of what precipitated it. And honestly, I mean, I used to smoke a lot of weed as a kid, I started when I was 13, almost daily. Right. 39 now. So that was using cannabis for a long time on a daily basis. And even though over the years, I've tapered off, and it's not nearly as much as it used to be, it was still pretty much on a daily basis. And then with drinking alcohol, I've never been like a drunk or like had any problems. Yeah. Right. So to speak, maybe a couple of drinks most nights of the week since I was like 20, like with dinner. Right. That's kind of my thing. A glass of wine or two, beer or two, a little tequila, a little whiskey, whatever. Drinking at shows, but it's never been a problem. I've never had any issues with my behavior or like whatever, DUIs or being a dick or anything like that. But out of curiosity, I kind of just let it run out. And honestly, it wasn't that hard to stop. But what I found is in the absence of salving over my negative emotions and my unhappiness and my dissatisfaction with myself and my life, using cannabis and alcohol for that long, the shit just came just full force. Just like I couldn't ignore it, couldn't stuff it down, and it became very much to the forefront of my mind. So I think that was a big part of what kind of precipitated this collapse of my psyche,
Yeah, I do know. I'm trying to, and there are moments that I can be very strong with it and not like rolling myself a joint at the end of the day. And as you're saying, it's like, it's not like I don't feel that I'm a junkie, or I don't feel that it's too much, or that I'm smoking too much, and that my life is all around it. But yeah, so I'm like, I have a love and hate kind of dynamic between me and smoking. I don't like weed so much. I smoke hash, but I can definitely feel deeply what you're saying, because even though it's not like too much or just like a little here and there, but overall is helping us not to deal with what really sits under. Yeah. And it's a beautiful kind of makeup that it's covering whatever we don't want to touch or we don't want to deal with at the moment. So it's like a procrastination, and we're like, keep pushing it, keep pushing it. And sometimes there is like a glimpse of like emotion that I feel, and then do I want to feel it right now? Like I'm able to like hold my own emotions. I'm very expressive, and I'm know how to hold the conversation like like deep emotions and be vulnerable. But at the same time, I'm so easy to just like go to take a puff and pretend like that everything is okay all of a sudden. Yeah. Like it's not like really important right now to let it out or like deal with it right now. It's okay. I know what's there. I'm aware enough to know what's there, but I'm not letting it really to resolve what's really there. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, what I have boiled it down to is using alcohol, cannabis on a regular basis was making the intolerable tolerable. Right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like life circumstances, who it is that I am, what I'm doing, it would make all that stuff tolerable. I don't really like, watching whatever show Niall wants to watch before bed. Like, smoke a little weed, now I enjoy it. Kind of like that discomfort of making dinner in the evening. And for me, I kind of deal with daytime depression to a certain extent. Like usually I wake up good in the morning, but then after I do my workout and by the time I get around after I eat and then I get into my work day, I face depression, procrastination, resistance, lack of motivation. And so kind of suffering through that all day, smoking a little bit of weed really helps with that.
Yeah.
Right. Helps me focus, helps me not deal with the fact that like maybe I'm depressed and feeling uninspired because I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Right. But it's easier to make it tolerable when you just, get a little high or get a little buzz going on. And for me, the absence of that has kind of been very revealing.
What's your, because I can, and maybe it's because it's maybe it's because of that we're both artists, so we can know or like can relate to your daily flow of how you need to create your own stuff and how like you literally like push yourself and you don't have any boss above you or like you're your own boss. So and my question is like how, like what's the mindset or like what's the thought that comes in that can take you to I don't know, both sides, like, or depression? It's like you always can choose, right? There is like a moment where it's all you go right and be productive and do your, do whatever you need to do, or like go to this cycle to take this left turn and go into the swirl of depression. So what's and I know mine, I can go to like the way that can just hold myself back is, I don't know, just women was very like a huge part of my life growing up because of the sexual trauma that I went through, and I got validated through women. So it's like, that was kind of a drug for me as well. So I'm like easily years ago, when I had social media, I was just go to social media or like scrolling for hours and just like getting this dopamine boost, so, and more, but that's my energy leaks. That's my distractions and my self-destruction. And so what is it? I don't know if I'm trying to craft a question, but I think that like, what is it for you? What's your energy leaks?
Great question. I think for me, the energy leak is getting stuck in the swirl of not knowing what to do. And not feeling like anything that I'm doing is important, right? As an entrepreneur, as a musician, I've faced with that all the time, with having to have a really clear goal, having a really clear, why am I doing this? What's the end result I'm going for? And then hopefully marrying that with a process that feels fulfilling, right? So whether that's whatever musical project I'm working on, for me as a fitness coach, right? That's been the last few years. I started my own fitness coaching business. And so was different than music, but at the same time, ended up being the same because it was me being the boss, having to have a direction, having to put the work in, and no one is making me clock in and no one is like, giving me the timesheet or whatever. So I would just, getting caught in that feeling of being disconnected from a real strong sense of purpose as to why the hell I'm even doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And without that, everything I'm doing just feels futile. It's like, why even do this?
Yeah.
So that, and then whatever, scrolling on Instagram or getting distracted by XYZ or reading or petting my dog or taking a nap or whatever might be the energy leak there. But the real problem isn't that I keep getting pulled or distracted into other things. The real problem for me is having a lack of clarity as to what the hell I'm even really focused on and what I'm really going after, right? And I think honestly that's been a product of me being pulled into roles to fulfill supportive needs for other people because I'm a people pleaser, and I've had a really hard time even being clear on what I really want for myself. I've dealt with a lot of insecurity and a lot of self-doubt when it comes to that stuff, perpetuated by getting high all the time and staying stuck. And so, I feel like I'm really starting to get some clarity as to exactly what I'm being really at the deepest level being called to do. So that's been good. But yeah, that's been years of that. Just, swirling around in the existential crisis of what even matters? Why do I matter? What am I doing? Why does that matter? Like, so it's really hard to like do that Instagram post when there's no
like when you feel that you have nothing to give, or like there's no purpose to, or
no purpose.
Yeah, no purpose. Like, and who's going to listen to someone who's not like walk the talk or whatever, holding you back from sharing what you want to share. Yeah. I was stuck there for a long time. And you said something about like to have this clear vision, which is so important as man, because it's a very masculine kind of quality to have. And I'm like, the question that comes up for me right now is like, what's going on like out there, or what's going on within us as men, especially as men, that we are caught in this feeling of purposelessness and not having a clear vision. Like, of course, the environment is very triggering and is really hard to keep our focus because of all the distractions all over the place, and whoever is controlling the media or whatever, whoever's like wants to control the mass or the people, like doing a great job with keeping our mind narrowed in a way, and also keep feeding our doubts and fears and desires that we'll be distracted so easily. And so I'm not sure if there is any really a question there, but like, how do you experience that? Or like, from your perspective, what do you think that we are dealing now as men that push us to face everything that we trying to push away? Does it make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're wondering about how maybe the roles of the masculine and feminine have changed and how that's affected, how it's negatively affected us as masculine.
Yes.
Right. And we can, however we want to frame it, men and women, masculine, feminine. It seems to me that every human has a spectrum of this.
True.
We have trends, generally men are masculine, generally women are feminine. Right. Of course, there are variations infinitely within that spectrum.
Yeah.
I personally was raised by mainly women, some of which were very masculine, right? I was raised by two lesbians and in a gay community, and with, so that is like, grew up with that. And so from my perspective, yes, men and women, but really at the core of it is masculine and feminine. I do think as men, if we can use that nomenclature, with the shifting of the roles, I think that there's a void where now we're not just expected, like, you get a job, you go to college, you get a job, you got 2 kids, you got a wife, you got a picket fence, you got a dog, and it's simple, easy. You can make a man at that time in the 50s or whatever. Yeah. You could have a job and like have everything you needed. Wife, 2 kids, house, boom. Yeah. Woman stays home, cooks and cleans. Everything is really easily laid out. And there's no questions to even ask about what am I doing here? What's my purpose? When your purpose was just built in. Right. Yeah. And I think now that as we should have lifted those limitations and expectations on gender roles, I think that there's some confusion in there, because now, whether you're a woman or a man or masculine or feminine, you have the choice. There's no, of course there are still societal norms that we're dealing with, but for the most part, especially in a progressive place like where we live, right? California, USA, you're left with that question of, well, who am I? Right. As a man, like, my woman like takes care of stuff. She's got a job, she works, she has ambitions. Like, is it my place to be the one who stays home and deals with domestic stuff? Or, you know, it's not all so laid out and cut and dry. And I think it's been difficult, not only for men, but also for women to, because you have to answer that question yourself. You know, there's no one telling you this is what you're supposed to do. It's an easy path. All you got to do is just walk it and it's all taken care of, you know? So I think that's at least a big part of it on a societal basis.
Yeah, there's a lot of shifting that happens now. And I think also that's also why I'm called to create this platform, because I think because of this confusion and because of the fact that we were suppressing the feminine energy, let's say, and we were machoistic, we were men, we were hold ourselves, there is no emotion, we like, there's so many men out there still that emotions, like cry in front of people, like,
it's bitch.
Are you, you know? and now, because of like the world is trying to balance itself, and we cannot hold this anymore, because, you know, now women kind of needed to, you know, feministic, although this movement is kind of using masculine qualities to raise up their voice and fight for their own rights and on all of that. And now it's like the created like it shook the boat in a way that right now it's pushing us to test that, like to test those waters, those literally waters, like the emotions and how it feels, and how I can let myself be more open, be more expressive, like express my emotions. And yeah, it's also confusing. You know, it's confusing, like how much, and then it takes you from being very masculine, and then you all of a sudden like realize that there is like a whole spectrum of where am I? This is like here extreme masculine, this is extreme feminine, where am I? And on this spectrum, and the norm of what society requires from a man to be, and it's also being challenged nowadays. Yeah. And we are trying to find ourselves in the midst of this storm, kind of, and be stable. Yeah. So if we're digging deeper for a second, like what we want to say, like what sits there that we trying to avoid, simply like what emotions you never touched, or like what you like, what wants to come up, and we're trying to like, no, not now. I don't want to deal with it right now, or I don't think that I'm ready for dealing with it, you know? Yeah. So what is it for you that wants to pop?
Well, I think on a basic internal level, it's first of all, it's having clarity on what it is that I feel like I've really been put here on earth to do. Yeah. Right. What's my chief aim in life? And yeah, I've had a big idea since I was a kid that I wanted to do music, right? I was born into it. I've been doing it for 25 years. Within that, though, I've had an identity crisis of, am I a drummer? Am I a bass player or a guitar player? Do I sing? Do I write? Do I produce? Do I engineer? Like, what do I do? And so for me right now, the emotion that is still coming up is confusion, right? But I'm really working through that right now. And honestly, like just in the last few days or through this whole process, the place I've landed at as far as my identity, so to speak, as an artist really is I play songs. I write and I play songs. To me, songs are the most important thing. right? No matter what instrument I'm playing. And as mundane as that might sound, to me, it's like been a huge epiphany that's really helped, because I've had a lot of insecurity about my technical prowess on, I was born a drummer, and I'm a great drummer, but I'm not like a crazy impressive like Instagram drummer.
Mm-hmm.
You see people now, especially with social media and all that, it's like a sport.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a sportsman on the drums or on the bass or guitar or as a vocalist, but I do play songs, and I play songs really well on all those instruments, and I also write my own songs, right? So for me, that's been a really big epiphany, and something that has been very clarifying to just arrive at that, as far as my identity as an artist. And the emotion, I think, that coming to clarity around who it is that I am, at least in my art, in my life's mission, and my professional endeavor, that alleviates this feeling of doubt.
Mm-hmm.
It alleviates this feeling of lack of purpose, right? Where am I going? What am I doing? I feel like I'm skipping from thing to thing, doing this and that, and kind of having like what I consider to be musical ADD, right? Is like people, whether people blame me for or labeled me as that or whatever. I've had a whole trip about like, who am I, But what I realized is like, oh, within the context of I write and I play songs on whatever instrument, all of a sudden it's like, it all makes sense, So that has been coming up for me a lot, and it's starting to heal that feeling of doubt and unclarity and confusion about who the hell I am and why the hell I'm here. Right? Existential crisis, maybe, is how it might be described.
And I can't wait to hear you singing and playing. But do you think that there is any fear that sits under?
Hell yeah.
What's the fear for you?
That I suck.
Huh?
The fear is that I suck.
Okay.
Yeah, the fear is that...
Like failure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, failure. Yeah, definitely. Failure, but I think failure as an umbrella, but I think more specifically rejection. You know what I mean? People not liking me, what I do, no one resonating with it, the world not because I don't, what I do is, it's different than what is popular. Especially when you're talking about music. I'm not a trendy guy. I do what it is that I do. I grew up in the 90s. I emulated bands growing up like Incubus and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and 311 and John Mayer and these bands and artists that have that kind of sound. I think my music is influenced by those artists and bands, and that's definitely not what's happening right now at all. When you're talking about at the highest level of pop, it's basically rap. It's pop rap. And then when you're talking about indie, it's all very genreified. It's all very easily identifiable as a genre. One band could be the next band. One artist could be the next artist. And I've felt for me like there's been no place for me.
Yeah.
Right. And that is a fear, is that there is no place for me in what I do and what I do as an artist. So why even do it?
Oh yeah, I definitely know how does it feel, the rejection. And I'm as an actor, I'm dealing with it constantly.
Yeah.
Like sending a self-tape or like going to
It's
audition
brutal.
and then it's very brutal. And lately I've been almost chosen to a very big parts in big TV shows here also. That's why I'm also here, that moved from Israel to the States. And so the last one really took me into a depression, like for maybe, I don't know, a week. And it's something that I thought that I already recovered. Like I'm okay. I've healed myself, and it always surprises you then that your buttons are still can be triggered. And no matter how much work you do, and you can be knocked down.
Yeah.
So easily sometimes. And the judgment that comes with it, and the shame, and the isolation, and I don't want to be seen by anyone, and that's very, it's awful. And you mentioned about like social media, about we that it looks like a contest, that we are like competing each other constantly. Like, and that's also something that, because of how fast energies like move, energy and life moves right now, and everything is like a swipe, and I felt like I've been swiped so easily. Wait a second. And maybe my lesson is not to take my time and to present myself and to just be present. And maybe I couldn't do that before because of a lack of confidence of like taking my time and just be present, for them to see me fully. So it was so hard for me where I'm getting compliments for what I do, but at the same time they called my agent later and said, oh, it's not what we imagined. So it's like stabbed me in my heart, and I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, what is wrong with me? And I know that everyone can say no, to pick someone, it's a whole game of how you look and how you stand next to this, and there is so many decisions that I'm not aware of. But at the same time, I'm dealing with the last prompt that this is not what we imagined. And that's hard. So why am I even saying that and sharing this? Because for me, for example, I realized, and I took those moments as a lesson to how to own my own energy and to value myself to the point that I can take my time and be present and just like ask them questions, or like have some kind of communication that I was, out of the excitement of the moment, I was kind of closing myself off. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And so I think that I was abused as a child, and several times, and it took me years to realize that I'm a victim. And today, you don't really need to go through an abuse to feel that, because I think that we are all kind of a victim of something, a victim of the system, a victim of money making, a victim of, or like, we're being slaved to do something for someone, or for the governments, or for the media. We're like, so it's really hard to navigate and realize, who am I and how I'm going to be unique in this world and own this uniqueness that I have even.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about like all of that? Like how do you experience life right now, with it, like with everything that around you that pokes on you, and how you, like, what's your tools, like how you fight back?
I think for me, I mean, coming from my perspective as an artist, we boil it down, right? I'm a musical artist. You're an actor, right? Mm-hmm. You're constantly dealing with judgment and rejection.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In your case, it's very literal. Like literally, you go do an audition and they're like, no, like you weren't the right thing. Right. For me, as an artist in today's world where social media is really the platform, right? It wasn't like when I was a kid where all you had to do as a band is like you went out, you played live, you burnt a bunch of CDs and put up flyers at the local shop, right? Like there weren't so many chances to be rejected.
Mm-hmm.
For me now, because the platform is social media, it's every single person is your judge. Literally, you are scrolling Instagram and you literally judge it. You either like it or you don't. You swipe it, you swipe past it, or you watch it. On YouTube, you can dislike. You know what I mean? So I think for me, being able to really get to a place where I'm divorcing my value and my uniqueness from the judgment of others has been a daily practice.
Yeah.
And I think the only way that I've been able to do that is just to stay in the work. Stay in the work. Every day pick up my guitar. Every day practice my songs. Every day write in my journal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Continue to stay consistent on my pursuits when I have a clear reason of why I'm doing it. And just really try and remember that, I may not be whatever. I mean, I'm not Cardi B.
Okay.
Right. Like
I was thinking more of Eddie Vedder
or that. Right. But I mean, and people judge the shit out of Vedder. How many people I've taken issue with Naya a couple times because she does not like Pearl Jam. She does not like Eddie Vedder.
Okay.
She does not like the way he sings. Right. But look at, if he had listened to the judgment of people being like, you're singing kind of dumb, like that whole thing that was happening during that time that he invented.
Mm-hmm.
If he had let that discouragement rule his decision making and stop him from what he was doing, he wouldn't be where he is. He wouldn't have done what he did. He wouldn't have made the impact that he did. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So consistently for me, I have to remember that, in this climate, maybe I can look at all the other people who are getting all the likes and who are popular and who are popping off, but I have to trust and know that there is an audience for me and I will connect with people and people are going to like what I'm doing. I just have to stay consistent and put myself out there, divorcing my value on myself from the perceived judgment of how many likes I get on an Instagram post or how many people are listening to my music. And frankly, dude, like I think I have one song right now under my own name that's released. Years ago, I've actually released 2 albums of my own shit.
Wow.
And I got so insecure that I pulled them down.
Wow.
Right. I got so insecure and self-deprecating about it. I pulled them down. And the other reason I pulled them down is because I was insecure. I wasn't doing any promotion. I would just create it in the studio and put it out on Spotify or whatever. No one would listen to it, of course, because I wasn't telling anybody about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was totally self-fulfilling my own prophecy of being like, no one likes me. Well, yeah, no one likes you because no one's fucking heard you. Right. So
yeah.
Anyway, that's my process with it now, is just, first of all, again, getting really clear on what it is that I'm doing. And then once I have that North Star of, okay, I am going to be releasing my songs. And that's really my next big plan for myself, is to start actually releasing and actually properly doing promotion, staying consistent on social media, reaching out to playlists, playing live shows, living and breathing the music, which is something I've never done at all.
So would you like to play something for us?
I would like to.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, so this tune is called Constant Desire. It's actually, I think it's one of the first songs that I wrote of my own.
Oh, wow.
I think I wrote this, I was maybe 23, 24. And what continues to astound me about the stuff that I wrote in my early 20s is I feel the same way now. And it's like both like, it's like encouraging because I'm like, oh, like it's still relevant. I can still play it. And then I'm also like, dude, you haven't grown at all. Like you're dealing with the same shit. But yeah, this song, it's called Constant Desire. And it's a song that I wrote about, I mean, you can interpret the lyrics, but for me, it's kind of along the lines of what we're talking about being constantly in this state of desire and how torturous that can kind of be.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, here we go. In my head, we are giants, fighting constant defiance. all alone, nowhere to run. Am I the only one? We all dream the same dreams. We all seek the same means in constant desire. Constant desire. We all think the same things. Can really say what we mean in constant desire. Constant desire. In my head, there's no silence. Praying for peace and quiet. No reward, damage is done. I'm not the only one. We all dream the same dreams. We all seek the same means in constant desire. Constant desire. We all think the same things. Can really say what we mean in constant desire. Constant desire. Anyway, that's a snippet.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
bro.
you.
There's like a whole like instrumental breakdown and like the drums go crazy and it's like it gets really epic. But that's the gist of the tune.
I love it. And just because that it's, first of all, it sounds very like, as you're saying, it like you wrote it 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And it feels like pure. Like pure and fresh as like your inner child kind of wrote this song. So it's so beautiful and so simple to the point that this is why we're here right now. Like, this is why we're here speaking, because of the feeling that sometimes that we have the feeling that we're all alone in this world. And all of a sudden when we open up and share, especially us men, we realize, oh, wow, more men feels like me. And we all have those desires to be seen and to be heard and to be, to feel. And we have dreams that we want to achieve. And we feel sometimes, we feel alone in this world sometimes. So, and that's so beautiful that you thought that this song will be appropriate because
Thanks, man. Yeah.
it really is, because that's the intention. That's the purpose of like why we sit here, like why I want to launch this podcast, why I want to, it's kind of my purpose that I feel that I want us all to feel that we're not alone. And instead of competing each other and fighting each other, we're supposed to lean in and to feel that it's okay and natural to just be vulnerable and like be emotional next to other men and not feel like, oh, am I pussy or whatever,
Totally, bro.
And that's old mindsetting that I think it's about time that we will get rid of.
Yeah.
And
thanks, man. Well, yeah, speaking of vulnerability, I mean, I haven't performed music in front of anybody. It's been like a long time, dude.
Wow.
Like since the pandemic started, I haven't played. And even before then, I was just playing drums or whatever behind a band. So yeah, for me to, I really appreciate you inviting me to play that song and kind of get the cobweb shaken off. It's been, dude, maybe a decade since I've actually performed my song in front of anybody besides like my dog or like Naya, so yeah, it's good. It feels really good to just get out there and play, man.
And I know Naya, and Naya is also like a great singer. So I know how it can be like, as you said before, like how it's hard to let ourselves just like express, because and especially if you have someone in your house that you kind of know and admire the way that how she do
The comparison is real, and that's something I'm really trying to get away from.
Yeah.
But it's held me back a lot because, everyone who ever hears Naya open her mouth and sing, they're like, oh my God, you're a goddess and you're amazing, which she is.
Mm-hmm.
But for me as an artist who I grew up playing drums, and I've been an instrumentalist, drums, bass, guitar. I've always had that instrument to hide myself behind. And so not only have I not put in the years and years of work of singing, but also it's way more vulnerable to sing and open your mouth than it is to just like sit behind a drum set and go boom bop.
For sure.
For sure. It's something I'm trying to push myself to do. I've been practicing more. It's a completely different thing when you play in front of somebody, in front of an individual or a microphone being recorded or in front of an audience. And so, that to me is just, I'm trying to do this as often as I can because I know that when I put in that work, like I'm going to get to a place where I feel way less nervous, in my zone. It can just come out without having to do a whole warm up process or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, that's the tune.
Yeah. And what comes up for me right now is like, while you're speaking is that what helped me you're saying to just get rid of kind of the ego that tells us a lot of stories of how and feeding what we are looking for. If we say that we don't want to be seen, our mind will create scenarios that agree with that or that will support that, right? And I've started to learn Kabbalah recently, and there is beautiful. I'm learning leadership through the Kabbalah, and there is something about to narrow down the ego. And I was sitting with it, and then after the moment that I was like sitting in the bathroom with a knife and asking myself, like, are you gonna kill yourself or not? And then I had like an epiphany moment where I was like, why am I so triggered? Like, why am I letting those stories affect me so deeply and ruin myself, almost to kill myself, and ruin also my environment? And how can I really isolate if we believe that we are an infinite light, right? And you have, and each cell in your body has the memory of like being an infinite light, as the Kabbalah says, and as you can, all the ancient. So how can we, if we believe in that, how we can really isolate the layer of the ego that, been soaking stories and agreements through our life and triggers and trauma and pain and emotions, how we can just like isolate this and understand, oh, okay, now I'm triggered. Whatever I'm experiencing right now, how I cannot like be dragged, how can I detach from that layer in order to just know and believe that we are here because that's what we're supposed to go through right now, and that's where we at, and that's where we need to go through till this point to evolve, as long as we're choosing the path to be the better version of ourselves, right? Yeah. And you can choose even not to, or you can just like push it away, but I think that life will challenge you constantly to be better and to be the better version of yourself. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's helpful, but it's just like what helped me to maybe to have some sort of control, or like increasing the belief or the knowing of the infinite or God, or however you want to define the bigger energy or God. So that was very helpful for me. And since then, I think that I stepped on a right path of recognizing, okay, I'm triggered right now, and not giving up into this swirl that wants to suck me down. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah.
I got to check into him. Of course, I've heard of the Kabbalah. I'm not, that's all I know is that it's a thing.
Yeah.
I really have no idea. So I'll look into it.
And I didn't try to like, sell Kabbalah or anything, but it's just like, we have so much knowledge all over us, and religion or Buddhism or what yoga or whatever helps you to I see it like ropes that helps you to climb up. And it was just a moment. And I think recently there are so much information that we're getting, like this little voice that inside us that it's like tells us what's real, kind of.
Yeah.
In the midst of all the voices that are around, how to really identify our voice, like what comes naturally from our soul and not from our mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, my mind works like a radar, so I can hear people's thoughts, and sometimes is it mine? Like, is it my thought? Is it like someone else's thought, or that? And when we're not sure, we can get confused.
I feel that, bro. If you're talking my language, I mean, that's been me. That's really been me. And I think my greatest challenge is because I am incredibly receptive to the people's thoughts, emotions, input around me. Like, I'm really receptive to that, to the point where being in such close relationship with people in my life, it's made my own voice and my own clarity about who I am and what I want very hard to hear. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think, I totally get that.
Yeah.
I really do understand that.
I'm trying to think if you remember a moment where you felt that you cannot speak, or if there is a moment somewhere that you needed to hold back your own voice.
I mean, I think for me, yes, especially when we're talking about music, right? And some, to go into my story a little bit more, I talked about recent, but I was born into a musical family, right? My dad is a guitar player. He played with David Bowie for 40 years. He did the last 2 John Lennon records. Wow. Like, he was a very successful guitar player. He was on stage with David. He was like 22, right? My mom is a bass player and a singer, and she was in a band called Fanny, who was the first with my aunt, and they were the first all-female band to be signed to a major label. They're a rock band. They're awesome. And I grew up in that context, right? Where I started playing drums with my mom's band when I was 13. And so in that context for me, I was always in a supportive role. And I think being hardwired to support other people in their expression of their voice, it's not like anyone was ever like, shut up.
Yeah.
Or like, you can't express yourself, but you kind of fall into those roles that you're born into. And the more that you do it and the longer you spend doing it, the more hardwired I became to not share my voice. Right. And then those couple of instances where like, maybe I played my mom something that I'd written and she was like not that excited about it, or hearing over and over again. I started, my first band was with my best friend. My first band that I started on my own was with my best friend, Martine, who's an incredible vocalist. Like, he was born with this amazing, the dude can sing, right? He's got pipes. And there was that comparison with him. And so it was always like, well, and there was that push and pull of best friends and brothers thing. So it was kind of from his side, it was like, well, I'm the singer and you're the drummer. And so having that role, and then it continued to get reinforced, right? When I met Naya, everybody, whoever has heard her sing is like, they're just like, you're amazing. You have such an amazing voice. And I never really got that feedback, partially because I didn't put myself out there as a singer. I haven't put in the time that, I wasn't born. I was born a drummer, and that's a time that I spent developing that. So I think within the context of my life and being in a supportive role as a musician, I never really, there was no natural opportunity for me to get that chance. And so now I'm in a place where I have to create that opportunity, right? And put myself out there, get in the repetitions, practice what I'm doing to be able to feel really comfortable just like opening up And, you know, I mean, I feel like I'm at a turning point with that right now. But yeah, I don't feel like I was, at least in a musical context, by anybody else ever silenced. I do think that with family, relationships, things that I grew up with and that influenced me, I was always the one to back off first. I was always, I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to interject. There was a lot of really opinionated people, a couple of people who I grew up with specifically, who were incredibly opinionated and very dominant. And so I always took that kind of side role where, like, I don't want to stir the boat. I don't want to put myself in the center of things. And so I think that's reflected maybe the choices I've made as a musician and also just as a person in my relationships.
I see. So it's like you're kind of got used to it, used to this position. And I'm so glad that I asked you this question, because I'm getting to see that you don't have to go through like a hard childhood or abusive or whatever in order to just like feel that, to be afraid to open your mouth in a way.
Yeah.
And it's not like even a fear. Yes, maybe there is a fear attached to it, like that kind of you how to say you're that kind of attached to it during life, and you got used to not to share your voice, or like not to be, you know, not to confront. And and I can definitely relate to that, and I'm so happy that I asked that, because, you know, I was thinking maybe to open the space for a lot of pain and a lot of, and it doesn't have to be so drastic, like so extreme with abuse or like violence or anything, in order for us to still struggle with what we are. We both struggle. We're coming from a whole different background, but we struggle with the same thing. And I believe that we are not alone.
Yeah.
And especially now that we are like, it's in our face.
Yeah.
And you cannot like run away anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to speak to that too, if I can,
yes.
I've been really adamant with myself about not feeling like I don't deserve the suffering that I go through, you know, because I've, you know, very gratefully, I've never been abused. You know, I didn't suffer.
Good for you.
I didn't suffer physical, sexual abuse. I didn't suffer emotional abuse so much, right? Like, of course, there's always painful things but I had a relatively very supportive and loving upbringing. My dad and my mom did divorce when I was 3. Right. There's a lot of wounding in that for me. You know what I mean? Like, there's stuff in there that I'm working through now about my dad and all these things, but I never suffered any like severe overt trauma. And yet somehow, like, I'm still fucking miserable. But then I feel like I don't deserve it. But in that, I really do believe that like every human is going to have their own version of suffering. And just because there are people who are living in absolute terror, and there are people who go through incredibly horrific, traumatic events in their life, it doesn't take away the validity of another person's suffering.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, I've been really trying to just have that be present in my mind, because the more that you resist it and feel guilty for it or whatever, you just stay stuck. Versus being like, you know what, man, there's stuff that really hurt me growing up, and there's stuff that still hurts me, and it's okay to feel that way, acknowledge it, get to the bottom of it, and then you can actually move through it, so you can just move on with your life and become a better person, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I do know. So what would you say to the man who's struggling right now with sharing his voice?
Well, in terms of just showing up genuinely as who they are and being willing to express that.
Yeah.
I would say that every single human has a very unique intrinsic value, and that we all not only deserve to be able to express ourselves genuinely as who it is that we are, but I think also that we have a responsibility to do so. Because I think that the more you hide yourself, you miss opportunities to share something meaningful with somebody else.
Oh,
right.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, not that I'm like trying to turn it around on people and be like, well, you owe us yourself.
No, but
in a way you kind of do.
In a way, yeah.
Because that's, I think, a big reason, again, like the purpose of being human is to have a shared experience. And so if you're hiding yourself, people are going to miss out on that, whatever it is you have to offer, whether that's your music or, your art or your acting or being a great accountant or being a really loving father or a friend. It's like whatever it is you can provide value in, the more you're afraid to actually just open up and be genuinely who you are, you're kind of robbing the world of the experience of you. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say. Because for me, it helps to know that like it's helped me to reframe my own shit about hiding myself by being like, dude, you actually kind of have a responsibility. Like you were given this gift of being who it is that you are. And like, it's kind of your job to like turn that around and give that gift to the world in whatever way that I can. And so that's been helping me to, versus, especially when it comes to doing my own music, right?
Yeah.
It's my motivation for that has become less about, I want the experience of sharing myself and being the center of attention to, well, I was given this gift and it's selfish of me to not share it with the world because there are people out there who are going to really connect with it. All I know is the artists and musicians and bands that I grew up listening to gave me something like incredibly valuable, it's incredibly meaningful for me and has given me this deep sense of connection and meaning and transformation. And like, why would I hide that and rob the world of what I can offer?
I'm so happy that you said and shared everything you just shared, because you just like spoke my heart. I think you and yeah, I'm just grateful for like inviting you here and be the first like to just like jump in the water with me and just like create this. And I had a great time with you, just like speaking a little bit about like and just open your own book, and whatever I discover here is beautiful, sensitive, amazing, wrap in such a beautiful cover as well. And I wish that we both will have the courage to put the fear down and just like keep going and keep doing what we're doing. And I hope that more people that listen to us will resonate with what we shared here and go out there and shine, because it's about time that we will shine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, man.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. It's really an honor to be here doing the first one with you. And I really believe in it, man. I think you should keep doing this.
Thank you.
I think the world needs to hear it. And I think men need to be sitting with each other and really just opening up and talking. And I mean, people need to, especially men now, because we tend to, bottle it up and be afraid to share. So I think what you're doing is really important.
Yeah. And now we can be men and go like drink a beer or something.
Let's go drink beer. Some chicken wings.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.